Hello, Miss Bankston. My name is Lauren McCraw. I'm the principal here at Forest Lane Academy, and today you are interviewing for a position as a fifth grade ELAR teacher. And at first, I'm going to share some information just about Forest Lane Academy so that you can have an idea of the campus culture. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Forest Lane Academy, we just wrapped up our third year of ACE. ACE stands for Accelerating Campus Excellence. And that's just a program that basically is implemented into schools with high needs. And we went from a D rating to a B rating in the year of 2019. And so this has been proven to be successful and really moving our students. Our mission statement here is that the purpose of Forest Lane Academy is to transform our community to ensure high levels of learning for all students in a safe and loving environment. And then our vision is that FLA will become a world-class model school that instills excellence and empowers all students. Now I'm going to share some numbers with you regarding our student population to give you an idea of the students that we serve. So we have 73% of our student population being at-risk students. 92% of our students are economically disadvantaged. Student demographics look like 62% African American, 29% Hispanic, 4.5% Asian, 2% white, and 1% of two or more races. And our mobility rate is 44. So being that we're in this area, we have a lot of kids move in and out throughout the school year. And so now that I've shared a little information about our school community, tell me about yourself.
My name is Lainey Bankston. I am going on my third year of teaching. My first year, I taught sixth grade reading. My second year, I did fifth grade ELAR, which included reading and writing both. And then, I guess my fourth year. So, and then my third year, last year, I did fourth grade reading. I'm excited continuing on the ELAR path, and because that is a subject I've always loved and have thrived in. And so it's exciting to me to be able to help others share the joy of reading. I went to Abilene Christian University in West Texas for 2 years. I transferred in from a community college here in Dallas, Collin County. And so there at Abilene Christian, I studied psychology. I had always, kind of tried to stray away, I should say, from education. And I had an experience not too long ago and just have found myself around children, having the desire to teach and to love on children. And so from there, I soon got my alternative teaching certificate through Texas Teachers. So that's how I got to where we are now. And so I'm excited for this opportunity.
Good, that's good. I'm a fellow alt cert as well. Okay, so Richardson ISD is a Readers and Writers Workshop district. So what are the components of a Readers and Writers Workshop?
So in my experience, what I have gathered and have implemented in my classroom is that there is a balance, and it's very time driven. And so of course in the beginning, from either reading or writing, there is a I do, and there is where the teacher models, and it kind of looks like the gradual release where teacher models, teacher and student do it together, and then you will send off for children to do on their own. Often in my experience and in my room, what I've seen to be successful is that students, before sending them off, completely on their own to practice the work, I like to give kind of like a group. setting of work, making sure that they've mastered the concept, and then after making sure that they've mastered the concept to where they would be successful on their own, sending them off. After giving some independent work time, bringing them back in together to share, clean up any misunderstandings, um, and um, and then after that, checking to make sure their independent work, if there were any misconceptions, and that would, from there, create my small group for the next day.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So, what are some strategies you use to engage reluctant learners?
Being a psych major, I have always been driven or motivated by relationships that I've created. I think it's important to create a relationship with a student, because if there is no relationship created, their lack of learning, the desire of wanting to come to school is simply not there, or it's lessened. And so when creating a relationship with students, it creates a desire and willingness to learn and to listen. Um, Other than relationships and creating those and establishing and maintaining those relationships with students, I think it's also important to give students the freedom of choice. What I've noticed is that there is a lot of power within that. And when they are given choice, they are more reluctant to willing to learn. Um, as well as creating a safe environment for them.
Good. Thank you. Okay. So please share an experience in which you successfully taught a difficult ELAR concept, and how were you able to be successful?
A difficult concept that I've ran into, especially within this past year, I have found that summarizing can be difficult. I see that students often take out the unimportant details of a story, include information that might be irrelevant to what the bigger picture, what the author is wanting, what the author is wanting the person to take away. And so the strategy I used that I found to be successful was the hand, for, and so, but, yet. And so using that and creating a guide for them has been tremendously helpful. They don't go straight to the paper and like, what do I write? You know, they have some kind of guide. So that has been something that has helped and guided such a difficult concept as far as summarizing.
Okay, thank you. Describe an experience in which you identified the educational needs of your students and successfully developed a way to teach and train them. And this is in the context of just on an individual basis. So just basically differentiate. How do you take the data and then differentiate your instruction?
Okay. The way I differentiate between students and levels is creating, referring back to past resources of depending on what grade level they are at. Finding and creating resources that will, of course, meet the same TEK, but maybe minimalized or brought up to challenge them.
Okay, awesome. What are some strategies you use to build effective relationships with your students' families?
That's a great question. Like I said, relationships are very important to myself. And so I like to attend, soccer games, basketball games. I like to go and attend birthday parties. And in the beginning of the year, I like to reach out to families and parents and express to them how much of a desire I have to get to know them and their family personally. And often I find myself in the beginning of the year having all these papers of schedules and whatnot and penciling, trying my best to pencil in, to visit or see or attend at least one party, one game for each student. And those who do not play sports or have a birthday, during the year, I still try my best to reach out to them during the summer, call them, wish them happy birthday and whatnot, send postcards. So developing relationships with students that last, within or beyond the school year is important.
Thank you. Tell me your system and how you organize, plan, and prioritize your work.
I have always been a person who thrives off organization. And when I say that, I'm talking like I'm old school when it comes to organization. I have very detailed planner that I have written out by the hour. And I also set reminders on my computer linked to emails. And that has deadlines, it has meetings and whatnot on it. So having the accountability not only on paper, which I check every day, but on the computer is also very helpful.
Good. And then as far as organizing and planning and prioritizing your work for your job, what does your week look like in terms of your own planning?
For personal,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for how you stay organized. Like, do you do a certain thing on Mondays, a certain thing on Tuesdays? Lesson plans. Do you do when you do copies, things like that?
um, well, at where my previous position, we had planning meetings on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that being said, we would have our lesson plan on Monday, on Tuesday, have our lesson plans turned in by Wednesday at midnight. And then Wednesday during planning, Thursday and Friday, before I left on Friday, I would make sure I was prepped as far as any anchor charts, any copies, any assignments that need to be posted or made online. That's when I do the Wednesday. That's when I do the actual making of the paper material, I guess you should say.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome. The next question is, walk me through your process of creating a lesson plan.
My process of creating a lesson plan begins with determining the major TEKS. So for example, this past year teaching a STAR tested grade, fourth grade writing, one thing that I found useful was going back to Leap Forward and going to past STAR, release STAR tests, looking at those TEKS that were tested and also looking at how many questions were on each. And of course, that is just an estimate of what will the next year look like as far as STAR testing. But first determining the TEK, after that putting the learning objective into kid-friendly terms so they know how to, or what they need to get done or what they need to accomplish at the end of the day. And then coming up with or determining what passage, what reading activity, what writing activity is going to be, what activity is going to be used. And one thing I enjoy about lesson planning is that the idea or the act of planning together as a team, because when planning together as a team, I believe two is better than one, especially when it comes to ideas and being able to bounce those off of one another. And so, yeah.
Good. What is your view on receiving instructional feedback from evaluators?
I think it's very important because um, it is important because if you are not receiving continuous warm and cold feedback, um, there's not much room for growth, right? Um, and that's important to me as a new teacher, especially being alternatively certified, in order to be the best I can be for students and students to come.
Awesome. So, what is, you mentioned warm and cold, and I've never heard someone define feedback like that before. So, I'm curious as to what you mean by warm and cold.
Um, so warm is what I've ran into in the past, is often feedback. How do I word this? So when I think of warm and cold feedback, I think of warm being like warm and fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm with my students and we're doing group projects and whatnot, I tell them we're going to give each other warm and cold feedback. And warm is like the warm and fuzzies. Wow, you make me feel good. This is something great I've done. And then cold is like something that you can work on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to give both. And I also think it's important to do both independently,
Mm-hmm.
because in my experience I've been given feedback that was, all right, you did this really really good, like love that you did this, love that you're continuing to do this, but like you really need to work on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself defeated as a teacher in the past because it can never be warm on its own.
Mm-hmm.
It was always like, hey, great, but you really need to work on this.
I see. Okay. I see what you mean. I like that. Okay. Um, Now, outside of work, what are some activities you enjoy that improve your quality of life?
I enjoy kind of like a stress reliever for me, and that I have a hobby for is like decorating and making furniture, redoing furniture. Something that my sister and I have gone into, as well as like gardening and planting indoor plants. And I find that to be quite therapeutic, because not only is it like you get to care for it and watch it grow and whatnot, but there's like many benefits to it as far as like having your own produce grown and knowing where it came from. And so that's another thing I enjoy doing, as well as working out. I think that is proven to be a great stress reliever, as well as something that can be fun and done with people that you care about.
Mm-hmm.
Dance classes, Zumba, whatnot.
Awesome. Okay. How do you prevent a situation from getting too stressful to manage? This can be related to work or it can be related to life outside of work. What would be your approach?
My approach to making sure things do not get too stressful, I think that goes right back to how you are organized and managing your time. Um, I've met people in the past who have wished for more hours in the day because they, didn't get X, Y, and Z done. But I feel as if things are prioritized and your goals are prioritized, that you will not have that wish or that demand of needing more time. And so um, straying from stress has a lot to do with time management and in your personal life as well.
Good. Okay, so what's the best piece of feedback you've gotten? And it can be a warm feedback and a cold piece of feedback. I'm using your terminology.
I'm glad I could teach you something. Okay, so the best warm piece of feedback I've ever received was from an administrator, and she had complimented me on my ability to manage different students' behaviors. The classroom I was in at the time was a full class, fifth grade class, and there was a lot of different diagnoses. Did I say that right? Diagnoses, whatever. There was a lot of different students with different needs in that class, and I was able to gracefully, in a loving way, manage each and every student. Um, every day for the first 4 months, a student would come in, and he would be crying for some reason, come straight, sit underneath his desk, throw his chair to the other side of the room. He would be under his desk in like a fetal position. And on the other hand, I had another student who that would upset, and the violence and the throwing of the chair would trigger him, and that would start his behavior of blurting, calling out, being disrespectful, inappropriate to other classmates. And to wrap up that, there was soon a behavior plan, placed, and resolution to that. But in the first couple of months, when we were trying to develop that relationship with that student and come up with solutions to manage and to love and to find a safe outcome for everyone, I was complimented in the midst of it, of how well I was able to manage and accept both of those students.
Wow, that's awesome. How about a cold piece?
Um, a cold piece of feedback that I have been given was as a first year teacher, I'd been suggested or asked to work on lesson plans and organization of lesson plans, which I had identified it being a low point or a weakness of mine. Granted, I was planning on my own. I was finding all the resources on my own that wasn't given by the district. Uh, and so going from a school where I was on an island, teaching higher grade by myself and not having support, and moving from a district to where I was given support, I have found that I've been more successful in continuing to grow in lesson planning. So I am thankful for that feedback because it has given me the tools and drive to do better, or to thrive in planning successful and meaningful instruction for students.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, share an experience you had with a coworker, a difficult coworker, and how you handled it.
Um, I have worked in an setting or an area where administration was very, I wouldn't say hands off, but kind of let the team or teams um, manage and work and solve issues on their own. And with me not being confrontational, I found that difficult because um, when coming together as a team and you have two different viewpoints on discipline and outlooks on children, and um, I found that difficult to work with that particular coworker. Um, and when I say two different viewpoints on discipline, I found it effective in my classroom to um, instead of immediately getting onto them, instead of immediately yelling at them because they were asleep, or cruel things. I remember as a kid, I was sprayed with water when I would fall asleep in class. And so that wouldn't be my immediate go-to. My immediate go-to would be rubbing their back, asking them why are they sleeping in the class? Did they not get enough sleep at home? To where my partner in that situation would have, called home or made them do their homework or whatever work they didn't do in class at recess. And I believe there is a root to every issue. There's a reason for every behavior. And so the difference between her and I was the lack of desire to find that root. And so managing, working together, I've found in the past it's best to accept people for where they're at and why they work, why they do certain things, um, and just meet people where they're at.
Good. Provide an example of a time when you were able to demonstrate excellent listening skills.
A time where I've been able to demonstrate excellent listening skills. I feel as if it's very important, and people really look, listen, watch, all of the above to your body language. And so, being a psychology major, I found um, that it has paid off because when students come in, when adults come in, whether it's my classroom, whether it's in my personal life, being able to read and to acknowledge their body language helps me guide the conversation. For an example, um, a student has came into my room before and has been completely shut off. They've walked in with their hood on, completely forgetting the classroom routine as far as morning procedures, go straight to their desk and just lays their head down. And so with me being able to recognize that, hey, that's not typically like that student, or hey, something must be going on, me being able to recognize that um, is helpful because it's how I can respond to make the situation better.
Good. Provide an experience when you needed to meet with a student's parents to resolve the student's behavior or academic problems. What was the end result?
Um, I've had one student in particular comes to my mind. This friend of mine was a behavior issue. It seemed that we had a great relationship in the beginning. He thrived off of helping, off volunteering. But when it came to the work and actually showing me what he knows, showing me like that he was listening and learning for the day, he would immediately shut down and the behaviors would then arise. And so my theory, the way I like to run my classroom, is that I like to handle it in the room between us first before I take it out to a parent or before I take it to administrator, depending on the severity of the situation. And so in that experience, after a couple of days of trying different things in the classroom as far as positive reinforcement, as far as like taking away things that he thrived off of, and on the other hand, increasing those things that he thrived off of, trying different things, realizing that didn't work. I had contacted mom, and mom and I came up with kind of like a behavior plan within ourselves, and that was extremely helpful, because if he did not do this or did not do that or did not work for the day, there would be a chart that came home daily, and depending on what was on that chart, depended depending what was on the chart, a yay or nay, that depended on his privileges at home. And so knowing that mom and I were partnering together, that was a lot of encouragement for him. And also, I think it grew our relationship stronger because it showed that, hey, like, she's not out to get me, she's actually here and wants me to succeed. So I would say that's one of the most monumental times where I've been successful in managing difficult students and their behavior.
Thank you. How do you balance cooperation with others and independent thinking?
Um, like I said earlier, I think it's very important to realize, recognize, and appreciate people for where they're at. But if there has been situations that have come about, colleagues have um, became off task talking about X, Y, and Z. And if I don't feel as if it's benefiting me or challenging my way of thinking in a positive way, I simply change the subject, or I just walk out, thank them for their time for planning, or, had a great lunch with y'all, see y'all at recess kind of thing. And so just making sure that my time is used wisely when working together as a team is the most important part for me, because when we're together, and if I were to give into that, it reflects who I am as an individual. And so keeping that at the core, keeping that important, because it's so important to me, just walking away, I've found, is the most beneficial.
Awesome. How do you establish and enforce rules in your classroom?
Enforcing and establishing rules comes at the very beginning of the school year. I believe if rules are not established within the first however many weeks, then that is going to determine how your classroom is ran. And so one thing I like to emphasize to students is that it is very much a two-way street, respect is. And so because that is so important to me in developing relationships, I think it's important for students to know that, yes, I'm their teacher, yes, I'm here for them, but to also stress importance of there is a time and place, and there being a time and place, just reminding them of that. I also think routines are very important in managing a classroom, because when students are given a job or certain tasks that they have to complete every day, not only does it give them responsibility, it gives them like a sense of like, hey, I have to go to school because I have to feed, Miss Bankston's bunny, because if I'm not there, who's going to do it, right? But I think classroom management is at the very core, as well as behavior, because if you don't have that squared away, not much learning is going to get done, right?
Okay. In your experience, what is the key to developing a good team?
Developing a good team, qualities that a good team consists of. Though I've never given the opportunity to create a team on my own. I think if I were in the position, I would look for people that have the common goal, or the common, like, I would say common goal at the forefront of their mind. So having or creating, finding individuals who all want the same thing, as far as teachers, like all coming together for the kids, Another thing is communication, I think, is a big part of a solid team. Communicating ideas, if there are any, when there are situations that arise that need to be handled, communicating effectively to one another, as well as openness and openness and willingness to listen and to learn and to grow, not only in the content and the work, but as individuals. And another thing that I think is important when developing a team is finding people who are always willing to accommodate, because I believe teaching is forever changing, learning is forever changing, we are forever changing as humans, and so finding people who are willing to learn and grow, not only with their students but with their team and as individuals, I think that would make a great team member as well as a team altogether.
Good. Awesome. How do you prepare your students for a later grade?
Well, considering that I have taught fifth once before and I went down to fourth, I have found that preparing students, it's important to keep in mind when lesson planning, week by week, month by month, unit by unit, it's important to keep in mind the rigor that they will soon be expected to face. Not only is the rigor important to keep in mind, but the expectation teachers and parents have to work independently is important to keep in mind too, because you do not want to hold their hand the whole entire time or give them work that is too easy or not as challenging or stimulating, because that will only set them up for failure.
How do you incorporate technology in your instruction?
The way I incorporate technology in my instruction is I like to create PowerPoints to organize lesson plans, any announcements, anything I need to get done for the day. I find that is a way to keep me on track, and as well as engage students. I also enjoy and like to find resources for kids that will engage students instead of worksheets or busy work. I think it's important because technology has changed tremendously over the past simply 5-10 years, and it's only going to continue to go more online, more virtual, and more technology driven. It's very important to incorporate and stay in the know when it comes to technology, and especially with our youth.
Awesome. That concludes our questions. Do you have any questions for me?
I do. You said in the beginning of the interview when you were introducing yourself and Forest Lane Academy, you had mentioned that the campus is a ACE campus, and I was wondering more about that. How does that look like? How does a campus become an ACE campus? And yes.
So in Richardson IC, there were 4 ACE campuses. Forest Lane was one of them because when they looked at the data all across the district and the school ratings, they realized, well, these 4 schools are high needs, not just based on our school rating, but also based on the data from the TAPER report, which is a report from the state, and it's on TEA. And the report includes all kinds of results, including test results, as well as the student demographics. So overall we have a high needs campus. That's what all those numbers I was telling you. And ACE has been for 3 years, and what we do is best practice. All teachers have collaborative planning on Mondays, where we go over the standards for the following week, the week that's coming, and we talk and collaborate on strategies, and we make sure that all of the lesson objectives are aligned with the DOLs. DOLs is an evaluation of how well the lesson went, basically how well the students grasped the lesson. On Tuesdays, all teachers have what's called data-driven instruction meetings, or DDI meetings, and that is based on, they're called weekly quick checks. That's every week, and that includes 4 to 5 questions on whatever the content was taught that week. And so with the quick checks, everybody enters them into a program called All in Learning, and we look at the data based on the standard, based on the overall performance. We look for any trends that are there. We identify student misconceptions, and we identify which standards need to be retaught. And then so we set a reteach date on the calendar, and then we set a reteach assessment on the calendar as well. So it's a constant analyzation of data. Sometimes we use those meetings for things like MAP tests. MAP is done 3 times a year, and we look at our MAP data. We also look for the data from the big assessments like the QSAs, as well as the SIM test. So we have a winter SIM test. We call it middle of the year SIM test, where all the students take like a mock STAR, but it's only based on the content that was taught in the first semester. And then we have another SIM in the spring. We make small groups. We basically get down to the root of how can we make sure we are growing every student no matter what level they're at. So that's how we went from a D to a B in our first year of ACE.
So just within 1 year, you guys went from a D to a B?
Mm-hmm.
And was that over a span of 3 years?
That was from the school year of 2018 to 2019.
Wow, and you guys have remained at a B as of thus far.
We've remained at a B. We didn't get a rating these past 2 years because of the pandemic, but currently we're a B, and we're shooting for an A.
That is an accomplishment within itself. I guess my next question is, how does planning look? What does it look like as a grade level?
So our standard schedule and our format that we follow is we begin all meetings with a relate break. We believe in relationships, especially when you're collaborating with these people all the time. You need to know these people, so you can discover a lot through a relate break. It's just like an open-ended question and people get to share. Then we go into what the standard is for the week based on something called our instructional planning calendar, IPC. And IPC is kind of like our Bible that we refer to throughout the year, because it has all the standards planned out and the exact instructional days that we're going to spend on those. Especially by unit, we follow the district. The district has provided on Schoology pacing tools, and so we use those. Those come straight from TEKS resource system, and we use those to plan and pace out all the standards. So we look at the standards, then we develop lesson objectives, then we go, instead of doing all that's in the middle, we do lesson objectives, and then we go straight to DOLs. And what we'll do is we'll pick one day for a lesson objective, and teachers will take turns modeling what the strategies that they want their students to show. And so that gives an opportunity for teachers to kind of pick and pull which strategies they like. And the great thing about it is because it's collaborative planning, you're always learning from one another. That's what it looks like.
How often do you, as an administrator, do walkthroughs, observations, and what is your opinion, or what is your way of giving feedback?
So we do walkthroughs every single week. It's a weekly ordeal. The big observations we do also follow with T-tests as well. So even though T-test only requires a certain amount of walkthroughs, we go above that, because that's part of the ACE practice is we always want to be growing teachers, because when you grow teachers, you grow students. So walkthroughs are weekly. The big observation is probably around middle of the year. either right before winter break or right after winter break. We set that up where we have your pre-conference, your big observation, which is 45 minutes, and then your post-conference. And then also after that, the walkthroughs continue and right up until STAR. So my take on that, and the reason for doing that is, like I already said, when you grow teachers, you grow students, but also it's also an opportunity for me to build a relationship with teachers and let them know what they're doing well and in which areas of the T-test rubric they're performing well in, as well as which kind of areas they have opportunities to grow in. And they get to look at that every week. It's immediate feedback. We fill a district form out and it shoots an email right to the teacher. And so they get to look at it and it's in writing so that if there's a situation where maybe a teacher gets low ratings, it's not going to be a surprise because that's kind of how they've been performing all year, typically, you know. Or you also might see in a positive manner, teachers look at their ratings and they can see how they've grown, you know. But my take on it is I never look for anything negative on purpose. I was myself a teacher, and so I know the reality of it. And my hope and prayers that I never forget what it's like to be a teacher because I know it's difficult, and I know every year you're presented with situations that you have to learn and adapt very quickly because the show must go on, right? So my goal in giving feedback is to always work with teachers and meet them where they are so that they can push forward, much like we do with students.
Mm-hmm. I think that includes my questions that I have. I appreciate the opportunity to interview with you and look forward to hearing back from you
Thank you so much for your time.
soon.